Welcome back, everyone, to the Kingdom REI podcast. This is the show for kingdom-minded real estate investors, entrepreneurs who are really seeking to lead their business and grow their portfolio with the kingdom in mind, and have a fabulous guest that we're going to excited to share with you today. Really interesting. We've not really had anyone come talk about self-directed 401ks, but we're going to get into that. But first, Cameron, how are you, sir?
Doing good, my brother. Life is great. The weather's getting warm here in Dallas. So yeah, man, how are you?
Doing very well. I'll see you in Dallas actually next week. We have a lot of activity going on some of our projects, and so excited to get back down there. I think that's also like the key of, picking a market before you start buying real estate is make sure it's somewhere. I'm learning, like, I'm really glad, we did this strategically, by the way. Like, we pick markets that I don't mind traveling to. Like, if I had to go to Minnesota next week, I'd be in a different mood,
Well, yeah, Dallas is great, man. I'll take you out. We'll have a
Yeah.
good time.
Yeah, it's not San Diego, but it does provide a different experience. So I'm excited about.
Absolutely.
So, well, hey, let's jump in today. I want to get our guests intro. Cameron, do you want to do an intro? I know that you've kind of deep dived into him, into
Yeah.
his story, and why don't we get him introed and get in the conversation today?
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of like Ella said, excited to have our guest on here today. Very interesting business model, kind of past experience in real estate investing and what he's doing now to help people, especially with the kingdom mindset. And so this is Dmitriy Fomichenko. Did I say that right, Dmitry?
You got it. You got it, Cameron.
Impressive,
so
Cameron. That's honestly why I let you do the intro, because I knew I was screwing it up.
I wasn't so good at spelling or enunciating when I was a kid, but I think I got it down better today. Dmitry, people obviously, I think, could tell from your accent that you're not from San Diego or Dallas, but you currently reside in the United States. So tell everybody who you are, where you came from, and where you reside now.
Yeah, so I'm in Orange County, and yes, as you can see from my accent, I'm not from Orange County. I actually immigrated in this beautiful country. I believe it's the best place on this earth. We gotta, this is my temporary home. I think it's the best place to live. With all the problems that we have in the United States, it's still the best place to live. I immigrated here back in 1996. So it's been 25 plus years now. I've been here more than half of my life. I was 22 when I immigrated here, and we came here with my family from Russia. We actually came as refugees. Both my parents and my grandparents, they have been persecuted by their faith. I have a great heritage, which is a blessing for me. I was born in a Christian family, and God actually saved me, as I was sharing with you guys before the show. God saved me shortly after we moved in this country. So it's been a new life ×2 for me, because it's been a new life in a new country, learning a language and just learning a way of life and culture, but also new spiritual life. So that's a little bit about my past.
That's awesome, man. And you guys came here as refugees. That I didn't know that. Praise God that He brought you guys here. I'm just curious too. You said you got saved quickly as you came to the United States. How did that happen? Was that an encounter with somebody, or was it, how did you come to know the Lord right when you moved here?
I was born in a Christian family. Both of my parents believers, and I knew about God, and been going to church with my parents as a child. But then when I went to college during my teenage years, I was drawn into the world and was just doing worldly things. And the way I describe my life prior to my conversion is I was going down the hell 100 miles an hour. I was speeding. That was my life. So there wasn't really anything special, but actually I noticed that God was working in my life, in my heart, before we even moved here, even back in Russia. But the moment was actually happened here a few months after we moved. And it took place in a small Russian church that we attended at the time.
Right.
I'm curious. I
Praise
know this
God.
has nothing to do with real estate yet, but brief me on the history there, just quickly, Dmitry. What were you seeking refuge from 22 years ago in terms of what was the crisis happening there in Russia that made your family flee?
Basically, I moved here with my parents. And my parents, they experienced persecution for their faith.
Hmm.
My father, when he was in medical school, he was kicked out of the medical school because of his faith. My grandfather was actually, that was back in, I believe, 1950, when my mom was a young girl. He was holding a Bible study in his small apartment, and he was arrested, and he was actually thrown to prison and given a sentence to be enemy of the people. He was declared U.S. spy or something similar to that, and was given 25 years of prison time. God actually saved him from that, and after being in prison for 6 years, he was released. But that was my parents' experience and my grandparents' experience. I personally didn't experience that in my life, but I came with my parents. We came as refugees for seeking religious freedom.
Wow. Man, I wish there was a biography associated with your grandparents and parents. It just sounds like an amazing read of their life and God's providence to free them, to save them out of some, terrible situations. But man, praise God, you're here and you're saved and, walk with the Lord. And what an amazing testimony. Yeah. So Ellis, if you're good, I think we just jump on into real estate, man.
Yeah, let me let's jump in with some prayer real quick and ask God to bless
Please.
His time, and we're gonna get going. So let me just pray for our time. Father in heaven, thank you that you are a God who saves, and that you call us to yourself, even Lord when we're not pursuing after you. And so I thank you for Dmitry and his story and the way that you saved him radically, and that you are now leading him in business in the way that he's using his faith and his salvation to be a good steward and help others. And so I just pray that this conversation today would be edifying. It would be that your name would be made much of, Lord, and we really would help others find freedom, both in terms of salvation, Lord, but also in terms of finances, and that we might use this episode to further advance your kingdom. We pray this in Christ's name. Amen. Hey, I got a question real quick about financial freedom. Your website talks a lot about financial freedom. Let me just ask this first before we get into this idea of self-directed 401ks and why that became a matter of importance for you. Why financial freedom? Like, I personally, Dmitry, I don't have time to talk a lot about my story, but there are very few places in the Christian circle where the idea of financial freedom and it is celebrated or can even really be discussed or talked about. So why is that something that you're passionate about, and where did that come from for you to help Christians biblically think and achieve financial freedom in particular?
Well, as you guys know and listeners know, my background, I came from Russia, and US we are so blessed from the material standpoint, financial standpoint. We got so many opportunities here in this country. Back in Russia, we just had, I'm from a big family. There are 9 of us, 9 sons actually. I'm one of 9. I have 8 brothers. And so we had a large family, and God provided. We always had a food on the table, but we didn't have any luxuries. We didn't have a vehicle. We lived in a 3-bedroom apartment, 11 people, and we just had basic things. And here we are so blessed. And anybody, I believe, here in the United States, if you're willing to work hard, you can have a really good life, from the financial standpoint. But the problem is that what I've seen, and prior doing what I'm doing, I was also in financial services, and I consulted people. And what I've seen, most people, what they do is, as their income increases, so is their standard of living increases, and they're basically in this rat race, and they just, many live in paycheck to paycheck, just trying to pay for things. But as Christians, we want to be free. We don't want to be in bondage, whether it's bondage to debt or bondage to toys and things like that. And for me personally, I realized that early on, and I realized that real estate can be a vehicle to help achieve that. And why it is important, because there are other things that are more important in life. Just to give you an example, we're living in very unprecedented times. The last 2 years in the pandemic and all the lockdowns, the world changed. And then the last 2 months, as you guys know, the war in Ukraine, Russia invaded Ukraine, and there is a full war going on. It's just, the destruction is just horrible. There are tens of thousands of deaths, and there is actually a refugee crisis right now, and the refugees from Ukraine started to come in from southern border in San Diego, which is not too far from us. We actually considered or talked about going to Poland, where millions of refugees have been. But when we learned about this opportunity in San Diego, my wife and I, we went there several times to minister and to serve these refugees who are fleeing war. And having the freedom to do that allowed me basically to do it, financial freedom, having a business, and not having a job that I'm depending on, allowed me to do that. So things like that, for me personally, I think many believers will relate to that, because we want to give back, we want to serve people in need.
I'm reading right now the autobiography of George Mueller, and when I read about him, I'm convicted of how little he had and how much he was provided for. And I love your perspective on financial freedom, because it's wildly different from even mine. I mean, I grew up in this country, middle-class family. I had luxuries, simple things that I don't think about, like a car to get places, availability to go to camps in the summer. And so I also like how you have this perspective on not being in bondage to the things that financial freedom can bring into your life. Luxuries, well, you said toys, just a lot of different things. I love, and kind of alluding to what Ellis was saying about your website, I love how you have some, company principles, a mission statement, and there's scripture related to each of them. When you're talking with a client, somebody who's interested in doing business with you, and what is a common, I guess, belief they have that financial freedom will do for them? Do you ever have to sit down and have conversations of, hey, this is what I mean by financial freedom, and you're hoping that I'm going to get you rich quick so you can have a lot of stuff? Is there ever a misalignment on interest as far as the kind of clientele that you would get on what you could do for them as far as financial freedom really goes?
Yeah, it certainly happens. And again, what we do is we serve, we have a little bit of a niche in what we provide. In the past, I basically helped people just with kind of overall planning. Right now, our focus is specifically on self-directed solo 401k plans. So I don't do financial planning or just help people with the overall strategy. Occasionally, I can talk to people who are open to listen and open for a feedback from me. But certainly, yeah, people have different goals, different plans. I have some of my clients who are believers, but most of them are not. So I'm just trying to be an example And whenever I can, share my philosophy that there are eternal things are more important than temporary things. And yes, you can have financial freedom on this earth, but you don't want to be wrong about eternity, because that's the most important subject. I just had a conversation actually with someone there in Tijuana before we left last week, who this person, he shared with me that he had a crisis of faith early on in his life, and he just didn't want to talk about religion or anything like that. And I said, well, you don't want to get this wrong, because eternity, you're either going to spend with God, or you're going to spend your life being punished for eternity. I mean, lake of fire. It's you do not want to be wrong about that. It's the most important subject.
So here's kind of the guiding question, I guess, for the rest of our conversation today in terms of what you do. So I mean, clearly there's a lot on Solo 401k. Who is our ideal audience here? Who is this for? You call this the ultimate retirement plan. Who are we actually speaking to today, Dmitry? Is this everyone? Is this only business owners? Is this investors? Talk to me kind of your ideal client and who this is really catered for.
Well, the Solo 401k is a 401k plan designed for small business owners or self-employed people. So many of my clients are self-employed or own a business where without full-time employees. So it's typically a 401k plan just that accommodates just a business owner, or maybe sometimes a spouse. So if the spouse is also involved in the business. So that there are no employees. That's what the Solo 401k plan is for. And to kind of dig deeper is the plans that we set up. They're open architecture plan. They're fully self-directed, without the restrictions that the plans Fidelity offer, or Merrill Lynch and so forth, because they have the restrictions. And they only allow you to invest in the stock market or related investments. And self-directed Solo 401k open to all kinds of investments. Many of my clients are real estate investors, so they want to invest their retirement funds in real estate as well. But there are many other things that you can invest. Precious metals. You can invest in private businesses that are not publicly traded. You can invest in real estate outside of the US. I have clients who actually invested in Canada, South America, Japan, India, and so on. You can do that. Even cryptocurrency been popular lately. So you can essentially, for self-employed people, so it's not for everyone. If you're just a W-2 employee, you cannot have a Solo 401k because you got to be self-employed. But you can be employee, and you can have a side business, and then you can qualify for a Solo 401k.
And the key here is that you can't have full-time employees, though, right? But the Solo, it has to be individual business, no employees. Does a spouse count as that? If she's a partner, like let's say even for tax purposes, my wife is 50% owner of the company. How does that affect having a Solo 401k?
Yeah, your spouse is not considered an employee. Your spouse is considered owner employee. Okay, so spouse is not counted as an employee. So it's non-owner, non-spouse employees who, because the rules are, if you have employees that are working over a certain number of hours in a year, then by law, you have to include them in the plan. You have to offer them retirement benefits. Then it's no longer a solo 401k, then it's just a full 401k. And with all the complexity that comes with it. And solo 401k, the beauty of it, because it's very simple to administer, because there is no rules for the employees that you have to meet and you have to be accountable for.
So sell us on it. I mean, why, what makes this the ultimate retirement plan? I've heard a little bit about Solo 401k, but when does it make sense to start one as a self-employed business owner? And what makes this so much better than a typical Roth IRA or, you know, an IRA plan? Why would you argue that this is
Sure.
the ultimate retirement plan for the business owner?
Yeah, so let me actually, that's a good question, Alice, but let me back up a little bit, and you guys probably discussed this, but I'm going to bring up Robert Kiyosaki and a cash flow quadrant.
Sure.
You may have talked about this book, and many of your listeners may be aware of it, but basically there is four legal ways to make money: employee, self-employed, business owner, and investor. So if you're a self-employed or a business owner, if you're in one of those two quadrants, then you can qualify for a solo 401k. And the beauty of being self-employed and a business owner is that you can potentially have much higher income potential, because as an employee, you have a limit how much you can earn. But if you're self-employed, and especially if you're a business owner, if you have a system that works for you, the income can be significantly higher because you can work smarter. And with the higher income comes higher taxes. So it's a problem that many business owner and self-employed individuals have to deal with. And rather than paying to Uncle Sam, rather than paying taxes, you can set up your own solo 401k. And one of the main benefits that it offers, the very high contribution limits. Comparing to an IRA, it's almost 10 times higher. So with an IRA, you can contribute $6,000 in a year, whether it's a traditional or a Roth or basically combined, you can put $6,000. With the solo 401k, you can put $60,000, about 61 for this year. So it's a significant tax shelter. I mean, just imagine if you are in the business together with your spouse and you're doing well, you can combine with your spouse, you can shelter over $120,000 of your income from taxes. When you do that, you basically drop in your income significantly. You're probably going to go immediately into a lower tax bracket. So you're going to be paying in a lower tax bracket on 100,000+ potentially lower of your income. So the tax savings can be very significant. So that's just one benefit. Again, if you're doing well as a business owner and self-employed, then you can do even better by reducing your tax liability. And rather than giving money to Uncle Sam, you can put it in your own retirement account, which then inside of your 401k, you have full control how the money is invested. It's not limited to the stock market. You can invest in alternative assets.
Yeah, that's just to sum that up for folks. One, this doesn't necessarily make sense if you're breaking even, right, in your business and you're barely paying yourself. I think what Dmitriy is sharing is if your business starting to grow, you're making more money, you're showing a profit. Instead of taking that, and let's say you're going to go take that profit and then invest in assets, instead of having to pay taxes on that and then investing that, what he's saying is you can put that into a tax sheltered 401k plan and then self-direct that money into investments. And so this is a way to essentially, that the government, a legal loophole that the government allows us to use in order to take income that we would ordinarily pay taxes on and instead put it into a retirement account that we can then invest. Now, the tax man is going to come for it eventually, right, Dmitry? But the point is it will be significantly less later than ordinary income tax through like a retirement plan. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, a couple things to say about that. Yes, there is the tax money is going to come for that, but there are ways to mitigate that. And again, a couple things to mention is, number one, you are able, or this vehicle enables you to take advantage of tax deferred growth. Mm-hmm. So you have advantage of compounding interest, essentially. So if you compare taxable account, if you, let's say, start with $100,000 in your savings and you invest that, and then you have to pay taxes on each year on the growth of that $100,000, comparing that with a tax sheltered vehicle where you invest, let's say, inside of your 401k, and each year the money grows, you don't pay any taxes. So at the end, you're going to have significantly higher amount. Yes, you'll still have to pay taxes on that, but you have significantly higher amount there. And then, there is another option. You can actually use a Roth. A solo 401k comes with the Roth option, which is post-tax. So you pay the taxes up front. And maybe you've heard this comparison is, the question is, would you rather pay taxes on the seed that you plant or on the harvest? Okay, and that's what the Roth 401k is. You can pay the taxes up front, and then you can invest tax-free for the rest of your life. And that's actually, it's a lot broader concept, which we may not be able to cover in details, but just overall, if you invest or if you contribute to your 401k, if you shelter money from taxes and your account grows tax deferred, later on, if you do the proper tax planning, if you do proper investments, because you shouldn't be just investing in your 401k, you should be investing personally as well. And if you have investments personally, such as syndications, then the income that you will receive later from your 401k, you can offset that by the phantom losses from your personal real estate investments. So there are ways to mitigate that and significantly reduce your tax liability.
I have a question, Dmitry. On your website, one of your overviews is to diversify investments, and you quote Ecclesiastes 11:2, which says, divide your portions to 7 or even to 8, for you do not know what misfortune may occur on earth. When you're sitting down with somebody in explaining, maybe all of these, and you come across this one, diversify your investments, is what you're providing a platform to then diversify into 7 or 8, different investment strategies, or are you providing one of potentially 7 or 8 as instructed in Ecclesiastes?
Yeah, it's a good question. When it comes to investing, diversification is important for the reason that you just explained.
I didn't come up with it. Someone smarter than me did.
Yeah, we don't know what's going to happen. And again, look at the last couple of years with the pandemic and what happened with the stock market. Now it recovered, but those who've been around for some time know the previous stock market crash and how long that took. So, and the bottom line is that you and I, we have no control over the stock market. We can implement certain strategies, but we have no control over the stock market. And even if you invest in, let's say, a mutual fund, if it's in a stock, it's just really one egg. But even if you invest in a mutual fund, you may say that your investment is diversified, and it is diversified to a degree, but it's diversified within just a single asset class. It's still equities. So you don't have the true diversification. And that's why I do what I do, because this vehicle offers complete diversification. So there is more than 8 ways to diversify with the solo 401k. There is virtually unlimited investment options, because again, if with the conventional IRA and 401k, you can only invest in equities. So basically what the brokerage account offers, those are your investment options. And typically they're tied to the stock market. But with the self-directed solo 401k, I don't offer investments to my clients. I don't. What I do offer is I offer a vehicle, okay? And I actually like this illustration. Sometimes I use with my clients is that if, let's say you're shopping for a new vehicle, you're shopping for a car. So you go to a dealership and then you take a test drive, you pick the model, and then you go to finance office, you sign the paperwork. The dealer hands you a key, you sit down in the car, in the driver's seat, and you drive off the parking lot. Okay, the dealer is not there with you on the passenger seat. You're there. You make the decision. Are you gonna get off and turn left from the dealer slot, or you're gonna go right? You decide which road you're gonna take. You're gonna take a highway or a freeway or a street, or maybe you want to go off-road. You can do that. You decide which gas station you're gonna go and fill gas. You're gonna go to Costco or you're gonna go to 7-Eleven. you have full control. And
Costco.
so what we do is we provide the vehicle to the client, and then they're making the decisions where they're going to take that. So having said that, again, it's not for everyone. You have to basically take the responsibility for the investment decisions. Doesn't mean that you have to do it alone. There are resources out there, like you guys offer a great resource, and you can educate people, you can help people make the investment. So people can use resources like that. They don't have to make all the decisions themselves, but ultimately they're the decision makers.
Yeah, really good. Let me just, I want to wrap this up with kind of just a question about your outlook on the economy. I'm sure you look at a lot of investment opportunities for you and your clients. You know, I mean, I know you're not financial advising, but just give us an outlook. You know, you talked about COVID, war in Russia and Ukraine. You know, we're real estate investors, a real estate show. There's we're seeing a lot, interest rates rising, fear in the market, et cetera. What's your outlook, you know, and how do you as a Christian think, you know, I don't know, do you weigh in fear with investment decisions just personally, and as you speak to clients? Give us your outlook on what's happening right now and what you're thinking about as an investor.
Well, again, I want to piggyback on the diversification. I personally been investing in a multifamily syndications, and but I wanted to kind of diversify a little bit, and I got into a self-storage fund. I got into mobile home park. Diversification will help you basically mitigate the risk, but real estate in general, there is a limited supply of it, and people need to live somewhere. So I think, yes, there are cycles in real estate. You want to be aware of that. And I'm not the expert. I just invest for myself, because I don't invest for my clients. I provide the investment vehicle, but I don't invest. So I'm far from being an expert. I invest my own money for myself. I talk to investors, kind of share ideas, but it's when it comes to real estate, the time to invest is now, because time goes by, and as time goes by, look at the inflation, look what happens with the just prices and the rise of prices and everything, you know, and that's going to affect the real estate market as well. So if you invested a couple of years ago, I'm sure you're glad you did that. If you're going to wait a couple of years, well, again, we don't know what the future is going to bring, but with the time, if the investment, you don't want to speculate. There is one thing that I wanted to mention is there is a difference between investment and speculation. And actually, early on in my investment career, I made a mistake, which caused me lose significant amount of my savings. Is I speculated. I made some investments, and that was with the single family homes that were. I was betting on the appreciation, but those homes had negative cash flow. They were unsustainable. When the market changes, I had to actually, I end up losing several properties because of that. But if the investment sustains itself, if it can pay for itself, the time will take care of all the uncertainties. And in time, those investments will appreciate.
Well said, Dmitry. We are about to the end of our time, but I would love for folks to know where they can go to essentially learn more about the 401k, you know, self-directed 401k, and potentially apply to work with you if you're taking on new clients. Can you just let everyone know where the best way is to find out about you?
Sure. You can head over to our website, which is sensefinancial.com, and sense is like common sense. And the name or the background for that name is because the financial concepts that we discuss here they make sense. But you can also find me on Facebook, you can find me on LinkedIn, and you can find me on Bigger Pockets. I'm active on all those social media platforms.
Great. Sensefinancial.com. I got that right?
Yep.
Awesome. Guys, if you enjoyed this show, as always, we're always seeking to bring on great guests like Dmitriy, those who can really help you as a kingdom-minded investor grow your real estate portfolio, grow your company, most importantly, help you grow in your faith. And so if enjoying this, please take a moment right now, screenshot this episode and share on social media. Let people know, hey, you got to go listen to this guy, Ellis, Cameron, Dmitriy. I really enjoy this show. So if this helped you, if you had a takeaway, all we ask is go and share this on social media so others can learn about the Kingdom REI podcast. Thanks, everyone. Cameron, Dmitriy, appreciate you guys. We'll see everyone else next week.
Thanks.